Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Thursday. Today is actually probably going to be like the one somewhat quiet day of the week because, well, first of all, let's go into the news because we did get the initial jobless claims, right? Let's see here. Financial juice. Why aren't you showing me the number here? Initial jobless claims 227K, higher than the forecast 223K. Not super very big, but continued jobless claims 1.862 versus the predicted 1.85 in the previous 1.84. So that long-term that long-term jobless claims number edging back up again. A little concerning. But tomorrow we get CPI. So things are probably going to be a little bit measured because people are waiting for that. All right, let's come over into the charts. Take a look at what we got going on here. So we got hit pretty hard by the non-farms number yesterday, but they actually did in the end recover a pretty good portion of it. Then they got hit down by the auction. That was a treasury auction, I believe, around 11. But overall in the overnight, we're okay. I kind of think that number that we got from the non-farms is not really the final say on it because I don't know. Do we have reason to be suspicious of that number? I'm not so sure, but you know, there was a pretty big revision to the unemployment. Like the unemployment just doesn't look good, or rather, the number of jobs that we're making right now just doesn't look good. So you know, could we still get a third rate cut this year? I don't know. We'll see. S&P 500 yesterday, pretty flat, at least on the index. There was a lot of turmoil under the surface. I was still seeing a lot of tech names having relatively large moves. So there is still a lot of chaos over there. Oil, edging a little bit lower this morning. Maybe the market thinks that the Iran thing is going to blow over. I don't know. If I'm honest with you, I kind of want to see Iran liberated. Warhawk, I know. Maybe I should have to go over there and fight. I just would like those problems to go away. Gold, flat. Silver, flat. Although I'd just say, you know, I'm pretty happy with where silver has come to. Because, yeah, it was a big drawdown and everything, but remember that, like, the all-time high before was, like, 40 or 50, so 80? I'll take it. Not bad. Kappa? There's a little bit of back and forth overnight trying to figure out what's going on in China, but overall, nothing huge. And the Japanese yen still trucking along. I guess the good news here is that the dollar is kind of doing okay, and they're actually the dollar and the yen. I don't know if you can tell here, but like the peaks and troughs all match each other. So like they're starting to trade opposite each other. But it looks like the fall in the dollar has kind of slowed for now. And then we got Bitcoin. Bitcoin testing that 6,500, but nothing too big. If I tell you what, man, because that thing right there has panic written all over it, right? Who else is there to sell? Well, it turns out actually there's lots of people to sell. There's lots of people to sell. We were talking about it in Discord last night. You know, in past cycles, it's been a common thing that at the lowest parts of the cycle, you see a lot of miners go out of business. Like mining becomes not profitable, and they just go out of business. I remember many times like newbies asking about this and feeling like it was a big revelation that, oh, like how can Bitcoin go below the cost of mining? Well, I'll tell you how. It's just the miners end up going out of business. But I'm concerned that this time around things might be a little bit different because there is this huge demand for chips and everything. And I know that like mining Bitcoin, you're doing ASICs and it's different hardware, but it's still kind of competing for the chip building capacity. So I think that the cost of ASICs probably go up a little bit. And then the cost of power is going up overall as well. So there might be some additional pressures on the supply side of Bitcoin that weren't there before, which could lead to more miners going, you know, having to bow out this time around. And it's kind of like a reinforcing cycle, right? Price goes down, miners have to sell Bitcoin to fund their operations. That continues to make price go down. And I think in the past, it was only something that really, really mattered at the bottom and didn't really go too terribly far. But I'm concerned that this time around, it could really turn into this self-reinforcing cycle that really depresses Bitcoin price. And then when you add on top of that, all of the debt that's been involved and MicroStrategy and all of that sort of stuff. So, on the other hand, Bitcoin is at a place where, like, this is usually the end, right? Like, it came down, there was a bunch of panic, and now nobody talks about it. Everybody's forgotten it. It's left for dead. That's usually where you pick some up. I'm not going to pick some up because I'm opposed to Bitcoin overall. But, on the other hand, if it makes another new low, like now we're kind of past the key level, you know, that everybody was freaking out about. Like MSTR is underwater on their average position and all of that. Okay, if we take another step lower, that's really, really going to mess with the market sentiment in Bitcoin. So could get really ugly after that, I think. It's just kind of trying to remember that in short-term trading, what we're really trying to do is predict what other people are going to do. So, what are other people going to do over here in the 10-year treasury today? Well, let's clear our levels for starters. Is that really? No. Okay. 13 is right. But then the other ones are... yeah, okay. On this chart, that seems so far away, but it's not that far away, is it? Curious, though. You know, I don't have these opens and everything. Maybe I should change the indicator to put in the regular open and the extended open as well, because I thought that Jigsaw did a good job with it, but doesn't seem to. Because the extended open is somewhere in here, right? Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'm not really expecting it to do anything too crazy. So I guess we might as well come in and do a little bit of work on our indicator, shall we? So first of all, let's do that. Exporting the levels. By the way, good morning, Ray. Probably. Are we a little sparse? No, we got our usual number of viewers. That's interesting. Before I do that, is there any headlines or anything we gotta take about? Was it yesterday Uzi was talking about the shooting in Canada, and I was like, well, I don't know if we really want to talk about that, because like, why would there be anything interesting to talk about it? But I didn't know at the time that it was another transgender shooter. Not that there's anything that we can really say about that, but man, that sure got swept under the rug. I don't see anything about that this morning. New York City mayor urges state lawmakers to pass tax hikes on the wealthy and corporations. Initial jobless claims refuse to signal labor market stress. Yeah. Well, the initial claims is not showing anything too crazy. I'm a little bit concerned about that long-term number is not coming down yet. UBS identifies when humanoid robots will invade factory floors. Ooh. Yeah, the Canadian authorities called him a gun person. Did you see those memes of like the gun, a gun as a person, like anthropomorphized into a person? I thought that was pretty funny. I guess like the thing is, for one, I don't like talking about the shootings because I firmly believe that a large part of the problem with mass shootings is the attention that the shooter gets and the media frenzy around it and the social media frenzy around it. And I think that feeds into it and encourages these people to do that. So I think that as a society, the less that we talk about it, the better off we are. I know that seems like well, you don't want to talk about it. There must be something like I understand that natural kind of like, oh, that doesn't sound right. But I'm telling you, the less attention that we give it, the less likely people are to copycat and do it in the future. Plus, it doesn't really have anything to do with markets. And I'm not here to come in because that's a subject that you can't really get too much into without like, well, I think that thing is wrong, or I think that thing is good. And that's not necessarily what we're here to do. We're here to make money and to understand what's going on, right? But there is something here that is relevant to us, which is that there are some things, that events that happen and kind of social happenings under the surface that are suppressed. That are kind of hidden from you, and this is one of them. There is the radicalization of the left. The left is becoming increasingly more violent. In this particular instance, you had somebody that it appears to me was practically groomed by his mother to be trans, like the mom wanted the kid to be trans. And the mom was taking him to shooting ranges and everything. Like this guy, between his mother and the internet, was radicalized by the internet. And I think it was a factor in this. And nobody wants to talk about it. You're certainly not going to talk about it on Reddit, because Reddit's probably partially responsible here as well. And that's, they're a public company now, so they want to not have those sorts of things going on. But it's something that's happening, and I would only expect it to get worse. So, that is something that at some point probably will become more and more politically relevant. So I guess that's all I really have to say about it. Anyways, what was I doing here? I was pulling up our daily volatility levels. I read there's more context to that, though. Apparently his mother was way more of what we'd consider a Canadian right-winger until he went trans, and she U-turned into being supportive of him. Oh, that is actually interesting. The this is another thing that it's like, I know it's dangerous to talk about, but I just can't help myself. I'm just very, very interested in the difference, the gendered differences of politics. Now maybe part of this is social media and things, because it wasn't always like this, but we're increasingly seeing that women are becoming more and more liberal and men are becoming more and more conservative. And what are the reasons for that? I don't think that we really have like a really good empirical, I'm always kind of like, well, we need empirical evidence to prove that that's the reason why it is. And but nothing is dangerous to talk, only dangerous to listen to. Is that what it is? No. I could get canceled. Someday I'm gonna get canceled. They're gonna cancel the YouTube. They're gonna cancel the Discord. You're gonna be like, where's Seth? You won't be able to find me because I've just become a non-person on the internet. But don't worry, it's all on. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name of that other website. But all of the videos get saved to the other video streaming, the conservative video streaming website. So it'll be over there, and you're gonna have to fight for me on YouTube to be like, no, he deserves to. We should see all the videos. Or maybe someday some radical will come and assassinate me. Ooh, I hope not. That would be terrible. And then they'll want to hide my YouTube channel. You're gonna have to fight to keep the YouTube channel up. Oh yeah, there's someone with an inordinate amount of influence among the night. All right, that was probably never will happen. But I tell you what, man, I guess I'm still traumatized from the Biden years, because there absolutely was a time period where you talk about the wrong thing, you say the thing that the Biden administration doesn't want, and you were actively suppressed on social media. And in fact, sometimes I wonder if maybe the YouTube channel was put on a list somewhere that says don't let him get too popular. I've seen some things, because I remember one time when YouTube initiated like the shop, and they said, well, it's like a beta thing, so not everybody gets it, but you can request it if your account is in good standing and all of this sort of stuff. And I go to try and set it up, and it wouldn't let me. I was like, well, my account is in good standing, so it's like I've been shadow marked or something. Maybe, who knows? I'm still traumatized, and I'm not only that, but I do believe that people are influenced by what you say. So I try to be really careful about what I'm talking about. And it's really hard sometimes, because there are some things that I feel like need to be discussed societally, but it can easily go awry. And even if you're trying to be innocent about it and you're trying to stay on the right side, you can still veer off, and comment can be misinterpreted or whatever the deal is. Or maybe just a thing where like I'm ignorant about the thing and I say something that's harmful, right? So I really am probably overly cognizant of that. I think it's kind of funny because like among the kids, oh my gosh, I remember last week my stepson had some friends over to have a dinner for some school project sort of a thing. And they were talking about this fear of that happening to them, of like being canceled on social media or doing something and being on camera and then the internet going against you and all of this sort of stuff. And I'm just kind of like, what? That is ridiculous that you're worried about that as a kid, because that's probably not going to happen to you. And as you get older, you're not going to give a crap, right? And maybe if it was just me, then I would be like that. But when I have an audience and everything, I feel a responsibility, right? Okay. So there are some things that are dangerous to talk about, okay? And whenever you talk about gender and politics, that is one of those places where you're easily going to say something that pisses somebody off, right? But I'm really fascinated that women are becoming increasingly more liberal and men are becoming increasingly more conservative. And what are the potential reasons for that? And one theory is that it's entirely down to the different psychology of men and women, and that women are more prone to, or not prone, but women are more driven to nurturing people, and so they're very much concerned about minorities and people that have been treated poorly and whatnot, whereas men are much more concerned about competence and getting things done. And so under that theory, some people say that women are causing some of these, like particularly with the transgender issue. And so you're saying that they were relatively conservative until he went trans and she 100% turned around to being supportive of him? That is absolutely something I've seen a lot of. In Utah, because in Utah, you got to realize Utah's a unique place in the Western world because it is probably one of the places most driven by conservative religious social stuff, right? So it's about 50% Mormon. Mormons are very conservative. We believe that homosexual sex is a sin. We believe that changing your gender is a sin. And especially during like the whole should we legalize gay marriage thing, because the LDS church like went all in on basically saying we shouldn't legalize gay marriage. And I think that the church regrets doing that, and the conservatives lost that battle, right? Conservatives lost that battle. But at the time, there was a lot of instances where, a family would have one member that would come out as gay, and the family would do a complete 180 and support, and become liberal. Absolutely something I saw a lot of. Happens a lot. Let's see here. Hey, so which one did you finally get from the ones you showed us yesterday? Are you talking about the thumbnails? Yeah, I think we picked number 3. I don't know if there's anything else to do. I don't know if he wants to adjust them a little bit, but anyways, where do you think it's going to go? Do you think that it's just going to continue in this direction? Like if there are like real deep-seated gendered differences in psychology that present themselves at the political level, then that kind of means that it's never going to go away and maybe even just gets worse, right? Just gets worse until we as a society sit down and say, okay, this is the way that women tend to vote and this is the way that men tend to vote, and there are good and bad things about that, and we have to teach people to be more cognizant of those biases and to not let them just completely hijack our society and create chaos, right? So some people think, well, that's just why we shouldn't let women vote. And I don't agree with that at all. Don't agree with that at all. Like, I might even be able to say a certain group of people, whatever that group is, tends to vote poorly, which really just means they vote in a way that I don't like. But I don't think that the solution is don't let that group of people vote. Because the reason that the democracy works is voting is the teeth. Voting is the teeth. And if you disenfranchise a group of people, what basically happens in that system is that system stops serving that group of people, and that's not good. So we want people to vote, right? And if there's a problem with how they vote, then we've got to teach them to be better voters, not disenfranchise them, right? Trump made me go from a conservative to a liberal. Wow. So this you're woke now. I don't know, man. I kind of feel like how would I approach this? Because I can totally get saying like, okay, I didn't like this politician. I'm gonna vote for a different politician, right? But I'm a little concerned if a politician is making you completely shift on your values. You know what I mean? Like being woke now. Well, the whole woke issue is another interesting issue to me, honestly. You know why the woke thing interests me? Is because when I worked for the bank, yes, that bank, they were all in on the diversity, equity, inclusion thing. Okay? They were very, very much into it. I think it was kind of funny because here in the States, and particularly in Utah, like trying to improve your diversity quotient basically ended up meaning hiring more Indians. So I don't know if it actually was really accomplishing like increasing the diversity per se, but they were also really good at saying like, we want people from all different kinds of universities, from all different kinds of backgrounds. So like even amongst the Indians that we hire, some of them came from the areas of India, like the north, that where there was very prestigious families. And I knew people that were like named Priyadarshan, and like you'd say their name and people would be like, whoa, because that was just like a rich person name, right? Like one of the most prestigious names you could possibly have. And then there were other people that came more from the poorer South areas that grew up in a place that had literally nothing, and they got interested in computers and were able to work their way up so that they could come to the United States. And there was all different types, and they thought different things, and it worked so well because they very much have a consensus culture there. Like, we're not going to go forward with something until everybody's on board, and we're going to fight it out until we get everybody on board, which is hard when you have such a diverse group of people. But when you have such a diverse group of views, and then you say we do need to come down to a one decision, we tend to get better decisions. It worked really well. It really did. But after that, I kind of saw two things happen. One is that I saw it get applied at like a societal level, and when everybody's doing that, that creates other social problems, right? Like one or two top companies are doing that sort of a thing. You know, like it's not going to have too much of an effect on the overall system. But when everybody starts doing it, then it creates other inequalities and other imbalances in the system that have had very negative side effects. Like, for instance, there's a whole generation of men that basically were very, very educated and then found out that there was no place for them. That the place that they were told was available for them and caused them to pursue all of those things, it wasn't there. And that's rough. That's really rough. That's like your whole life, right? But then the other thing that I saw was that everybody else that I saw try to apply what I saw doing at the bank did it wrong. It was really weird to watch because they were really thinking about, how does this person think and how do I get a team that has as much diversity of thought as possible? And everybody else just treated it like a tick box. And that wasn't good. It wasn't good. And so I've kind of struggled with this because I believed in the diversity part of it, And I think that a lot of the science that we have kind of suggests diversity. Like these things that I'm talking about with the market, how does the market tend to behave, and what does that suggest for us? It suggests that the decisions that we make matter, and that we should use our decisions and our investment money and stuff to try and affect things for the better. And yet here we see, but what actually happened was when that one idea takes over and everybody's going one way, it creates more problems, right? You need the diversity of thought, right? It's so interesting to me, right? So woke to me was like a good idea gone terribly awry, because it turned from it's good to have more diversity, and especially diversity of thought within an organization, to we want to elevate everybody that was historically disadvantaged and tear down everybody that was historically advantaged, and completely get rid of meritocracy, which I think is wrong. I think meritocracy is a goal. It's not something that you're ever going to achieve perfectly, and perfect meritocracy would probably be a dystopia. Okay? But you still need meritocracy too, and meritocracy should not be a victim of our other efforts to make the world better, right? So the whole woke thinking to me is like they took a great idea and they infused it with a little bit of Marxism, and it just went crazy, right? Political principles are different from politicians. Most people don't have values with politics these days. They just ebb and flow with TV reigns and social pressure. I'm not too thrilled about the way that the Trump administration is going. I'm voted for him, but that's not going to turn me into a rainbow communist, right? Well, I'm not too happy with the way that the Trump administration is going, just because, we had the whole trade war thing. I do think he showed that tariffs are a tool that can be used judiciously. And perhaps it is the case that because everybody thought that tariffs are just always bad in all cases, that he had to come in and make a big show of it to prove it. But the problem is that when it's been used on the scale that it has, it's been a negative for the economy, and it's made the last year really rough and difficult. And we have higher interest rates than we probably would have had otherwise. And the bigger issue I have in the economy right now is that I really think that at the moment that we're at, where we're seeing AI and we're seeing really, really big changes in the world, that those changes will be easier for our society to handle and for individual people to handle if we have lower interest rates. Now, on the other hand, probably AI wouldn't be anywhere close to where it is today if it wasn't for the Trump administration too. Biden administration probably would have tried to squash it, which I think would have been a bad thing. Whatever. You do you, Sam. Let's see here. When I was in a mosque, guess who was in the front line protecting us while we prayed? Purple hair, lesbian, and a non-binary. So, because that's all that they have in Minnesota. I don't know. Renee Good died for our sins. Oh boy. Well, but there you go. Mahdi says, thanks to Trump, I know what boat I belong to. Well, I think Mahdi is right on that. Like honestly, I don't know if you're still there, Uzi, but really think about it from the perspective of like, how do most people vote? Most people vote in line, like tribalism, right? And most people vote for what they think will benefit them. And that might sound like I'm kind of denigrating people that vote like that. Well, on some level, it is kind of like, well, that sucks, because there could be some situations where something will be bad for you personally, but it is necessary for the society, or it is good for the society overall. And so you just have to bite the bullet and do the thing that is right. But the way that democracy works, again, is that voting is the teeth. Voting is the teeth. And so voting ensures that the best interests of the politicians are in line with the best interests of their constituents, right? So if we have a situation where a particular group, right, has certain interests and whatnot, right, and one party, that group is better, represented by one party over the other, they're gonna vote for that. And it was weird, like that you were maybe a Republican at some point. If you're Muslim and you were a Republican at some point, that's kind of weird, right? You're only going to do that if you have some deeper seated values that you feel are better reflected in the Republican Party. Which isn't to say that a Muslim couldn't feel at home in the Republican Party. I mean, Muslims are much more conservative socially, and so in some respects, maybe they would reflect Republican values better. But the reality of it is, like with the tribalism and everything like that, that Muslims are in the Democrat tribe. It's just what, I don't know, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just what it is, right? Muslims are pretty conservative, but we would rather vote for non-binary, trans, and MAGA facts. Yeah, and Madi, to be honest with you, like, and this is the thing that just kills me, because I don't know what the answer is on this. I can only say how it is right now. Most Republicans don't want you here. They just don't. It's just Republicans are concerned that the United States will be turned into an Islamic caliphate in 100 years. That's a fear that Republicans have, and it's a fear that I have, to be honest with you. But I have enough self-awareness to know that I don't really know if that's where it's going. Right? I know that I'm concerned about it, but I don't know if that's actually a realistic fear or not. But the Republicans that have that fear, they're you don't have that fear? Not for us? Well, okay. I mean, I think that it would probably take 100 or 200 years, but I'm definitely concerned about Europe turning into an Islamic caliphate. Like, I don't know. Some of the things that I'm seeing in Europe are really crazy to me, right? And what is the Republican solution? So we just shouldn't have them here. Stop letting them come. So what are you supposed to say if that's what you think? That's not what I think, but let's just assume for a second that it was. Okay, and then you have a friend that's a Muslim immigrant. What are you supposed to say to them? Well, I really like you, but we don't want more Muslims here. Like, I just, Europe will go that route, will more likely become a land country. But it's fascinating to me that Europe fought against Islamic empires for a very, very long time, because there was a period where, if a few things went the other way, they would have taken over Europe hundreds of years ago. And now it's come through and having 10 kids. Wow. But I mean, I think it's the other side of it is like, let me tell you something. But I really think that there's been some people have been deceived here in the past like 3 months, right? Because what's going on with ICE is there are people that have been convicted of crimes and have been given deportation orders. And if the local governments, when they have somebody in prison that's an illegal immigrant, they would say, okay, this is somebody that should be deported, especially if they've done violent crime. This is somebody that should be deported from the country. And the left has said, no, we're going to be a sanctuary city where nobody gets deported. And so we have this whole crazy thing that's like, we're protecting the innocent and the minorities and the historically disadvantaged. And really what they're doing is they're protecting rapists and murderers and violent criminals. So don't let them fool you on that one. Even though probably for your own best interests right now, it probably is better to vote Democrat if you're Muslim. I'm saying this as a Republican whose own interests are very much the other way. I think when it comes to politics, so here's the other thing. I think the idea that drives my own politics the most is that we are dealing with complex systems and that there are certain strategies that work and don't work when it comes to improving complex systems. And the liberal way of dealing with complex systems does not work very well. Because the liberal way of doing it is basically saying, I'm so smart and I know everything, and if we change this one thing, then everything will be perfect. And then it never ends up being that way. And that's why every little government program and idea and things that they want to do, whether it's climate change or DEI or all of these other things, end up being complete disasters. Okay, maybe the world, I am climate change agnostic. I simply do not know enough about the science of climate change to really be talking about whether or not the world is warming or whether it's man-made or how, to what degree it's going to affect us in the future. I've read a lot of things about it. My understanding is that temperatures are going up, that it's probably humans, and that it's going to result in a few degrees temperature increase over the next 100 years. Okay, cool. But that's not my place to say if that is or isn't true. But if we assume that it is true and it's a problem that we are going to deal with, then you get into my area of expertise. And all of the things that the liberals want you to do for climate change are terrible, terrible ideas that will not only make you less free and less prosperous, but won't fix the climate change issues. Like Europe has become less green, like they've harmed themselves economically, and they're putting out more pollutants because they got rid of their nuclear power plants. It's just crazy, right? The radical I know everything and let's just completely restructure society thing doesn't work. And more to the point, because really what we're talking about is more the social issues, right? Again, all of these social groups, communities, these are complex systems. So if you come in and you say, okay, we need to completely restructure society, you're not going to end up with a better society. You're going to end up with chaos. And that's what's happening right now, right? Like, we're going to have to kind of, what is the word? Compromise here a little bit, right? Like, I want America to stay, I want my community to stay the way that it's been. But the reality is that there are people that are here. And these are competing ecosystems. And these ecosystems, they're self-organizing, so on their own, they will kind of sort it out. We don't need to come in as government and put a... Now, there are some cases where you can kind of gently come in and we make a little change, and oh, we don't like this that's happening, let's make a little change, see how that affects things for a few years, and then we can make another small change and just small incremental things, and that's an effective way to do it. But that's not what the left wants. The left want anarcho-communism, basically. Which is pretty wild. Pretty wild, right? I got a daycare to run. Is he trolling me? He must be trolling. If we were in a different situation, maybe starting a daycare at my house would be the thing to do, because it sounds like you can become a millionaire from doing it. And I would do it by having an actual real daycare. Actually, I don't know if a daycare in Utah would work that well, because most people just have stay-at-home mom. A bro's view of chat lags by half an hour. Well, I'm trying to get to a point. Your conversation is definitely evolving faster than I can yap, isn't it? Let's see here. No, everyone came out and said climate change is fake. Even like Bill Gates or whoever. Remember, it's all a lie, and they've came out and said it. Remember, they want data centers, so suddenly climate change isn't real. Well, I wouldn't say that. I don't think that they said that climate change isn't real. I think that they realized that the strategies that they were using to try and deal with climate change were wrong. So, oh man, I don't have it. It's over here in that bookcase. So that book that I've told you guys about, by Doyne Farmer, Understanding Complexity. I think that what motivated him to write that book was actually climate change. Like, he talks about the economics primarily as a way to help you understand all of the different topics that you have to understand in order to understand complexity science. Because it's something where it's not like it's a concept that's difficult to understand. It's that there are so many abstractions. There's like 20 terms that you have to have described to you and you understand in order for you to really get into like using it. It's just like a lot of computer science stuff. Like if I want to explain Kubernetes to you, I have to explain like 20 different abstractions, what they mean, for you to even understand what Kubernetes does, right? Complicated. I shouldn't say complicated. It's there's a lot of abstractions. Anyways, it's difficult to teach, let's say. But at the end of the book, he talks about climate change. And he basically straight up says that he has become so concerned by the climate change issue that he is not really looking at economics anymore, and he is focused entirely on climate change. Okay? But here's the thing that's really interesting about it, is that he went and he did a study that is like, okay, so if we are going to try and stop climate change, or at least limit its impact, how do we do that? And he started getting into the science of it, which really, okay, well, there's renewable energies and there's different things, and but at what is the pace that those things are going to evolve, right? Are we going to be able to get the technology to the level that we need to provide for our energy needs before it's too late, sort of a thing, right? And basically what his research showed was that the pace of technological development over really long time periods tends to outpace our predictions, because you'll have a development over here and you have a development over here, and there's some synergy with them that results in some massive productivity increase. And so if you come in and you limit the development and you slow the economic growth, what you actually do, you slow the development of those technologies so much that there's no chance that you would ever come anywhere even close to solving climate change. So his whole like theory in that book, that's like why he's talking about it, is to basically say we need to stop these policies that are economically damaging, and like we want energy to be more expensive, and even if that hits the pocket of the average American, because that's what a lot of people in the climate change movement think, right? And Doyne is basically saying no. The science that we have suggests that that's the worst thing that you could do. And that has always been my big problem with climate change. Okay, maybe it's happening. The way that you guys are trying to fix it is the worst way that you could go about it. Implement communism? No. The end of the world is the best profit-making opportunity I've ever heard of. Come on. If the world is going to end, there's money in that. Absolutely. Right? And you don't need a government to come in and like put its finger on the scale or anything. Like it happens on its own. And those scientific developments are happening. Right? So we need to continue to develop and innovate, and we will get better forms of energy. That's what's going to happen. Right? It comes back to my view. Like the view that drives me the most politically is that these are complex systems and the solutions to these things are often counterintuitive, and the kinds of solutions that you tend to get from liberals or progressives, let's call them, tend to be more of the I know what's going on and I know best, and I'm going to force everybody to do this thing. Right? And all of this is relevant to trading. All of this is relevant to trading because ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to predict what other people are going to do. And it's a complex system. So if you come into it with this kind of liberal minded thing, you're going to say, oh, well, I know what the market is, and I know where the market's going, and yada, 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 yada. And it's just going to blow up in your face. You have to have the humility to come in and say that we are very limited in what we can truly actually know. We understand how we have to approach this. We have to predict what other people are going to do, and then wait for the opportunities where we have a really, really solid idea of what other people are going to do, and we can get in before they do it. Yeah, so do you even trade not the day before a big CPI number? I mean, come on. The treasuries have literally moved 2 ticks the whole session. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You want me to sit in a 10-year treasury trade for 2 hours that goes nowhere, so that you can get your dopamine boost by you seeing that it never ticks? Yes, well, I mean, even ES has been kind of tight. But the problem with ES is, do you actually have something that will predict what other people are going to do in ES? So the problem in ES is that the amount of complexity that they have over there is too much for us to deal with. Maybe if I had more data and some computer models that could simplify it into some stuff that I could actually trade, but otherwise it's just too complex. And all these people that think that if you just come in and you see some certain bar pattern and do it, they don't know what they're talking about. So what do we do instead? We prepare. We talk about the world. We try to understand what's going on in the world, where the world's going, and we try to understand how to think. Because really, ultimately, what I'm talking about is how to think, right? how to think, how to vote. Right? So that when there is opportunity, we're going to be ready for it. We're going to be prepared for it. On ES. Oh, yesterday was a big sell. Well, yeah, but the sell was primarily because of the non-farms payrolls, something that happens just like that. Can you predict what the non-farms payroll is going to be? I don't know. I've been pretty okay at predicting news, but I didn't get that one right. I thought it was going to be a bad number. It was a good number. I have a position on because I know it's foolish to have a position on before that, right? By the time the liquidity came back, it's not the sell anymore. I guess in ES it was initially positive and then they kind of sold off later, didn't they? But like this thing right here, whoosh, and then came back to even. It did move. But again, just because it moved doesn't necessarily mean that there's trading opportunity. Because what is it that we got to do? In order for you to make money in short-term trading, you have to predict what other people are going to do. So what's the thing that you're going to know that's going to predict that they're going to buy it after the non-farms, and then there's going to be a big, huge sell, and then it's going to come back to break even? Right? There's in order to predict that it was going to do that, there's probably like 1,000 things that you would have to factor in first. Right? You're crazy if you think that you can do that all in your head. You caught the sell-off. Okay, you got lucky. Good for you. But you got lucky. Do that for 5 years and then come back. If you can show me that you can do that for 5 years, then maybe I might be interested in that you did that. Then how do I do it? I look for pieces of information that are extremely effective at predicting what other people are going to do. And I'll look for situations where I have that information and it's not reflected in the market yet, but that I know that it will be reflected in the market soon so that I can get ahead of the tape. That's what I do. So you can go and you can look on, was it Monday? Because today's Thursday and we didn't do anything on when, or was it, maybe it was Tuesday when we had that, was it the Jolts number? I can't remember what day it was. But basically there was a day where we had a news event come out, and I knew that even though there wasn't like too huge of a move off of the initial news, that was going to really shift a lot of people's expectations of the economy and that they were going to have to hedge themselves because of it. So I was able to, that was where I had an opportunity to position myself before that flow really came in. So it was entirely informational. It's funny that I can't even remember what news it was that made us move that day. That's so funny. I tell you what, when you've been trading as long as I have now, you just kind of... No, it was Tuesday. Oh, yeah. It was retail sales. Yes. So I came in, I saw retail sales was bad, right? The treasuries didn't move that much off of it, but I knew that there was going to be a lot of managers that were going to have to come in and do stuff. And the other things that we had going on that day kind of suggested buy as well. So I held it for a while and made a basis point. That's how we do it. Now in the treasuries, you can kind of get away with that sort of a thing, right? Because there's not as much going on over here, right? We've got people, we've got competing products like companies issuing bonds Okay, which is a big thing right now because, I think it was Google the other day did a bund offering and things like that. Okay, so that's one thing that you got going on. And then you've got all of the business that goes on with the primary dealers. That's one thing that we kind of have to factor in. And then there are the market makers and what they have to do based off of how it's been going already so far. And volatility, what the options were pricing and what that means for the holders of the options when we get to certain places. And then we have expectations of what the Federal Reserve is going to do, right? Well, it's like 5 things, right? I can come in at the beginning of the day, sort out what all of those things are going to do, know which ones are kind of question marks, so that when there's a change, I can see it right away and execute right away, right? Whereas when you're talking about ES, you're talking about an index of 500 companies. So right there, right away, the number of things that you might have to factor in, there's like 500 of them, right? Yes, it's too complicated. Let me tell you something. When I was talking to the block traders at the bank, at the time, I was the most interested in equity index futures too. Because I was basically swing trading, and I had made the best plays on swing trades. I basically would wait for time when the S&P 500 was looking kind of stressed out, right? And I was just really good at catching the bottom, getting in, and then just hold it for a month or whatever. You get big wins. And then you have leverage. Kind of fools you into thinking you know what's going on. And when I started talking to the block traders, they're like, what are you most interested in? Oh, well, I'm looking at equity index futures. They laughed at me. Like, literally, she wasn't like, haha, you're so dumb. It was just, she couldn't help herself. It's just so funny because that's what most traders do, right? Of course it's the ES. So she laughed, and I'm like, well, why is that? It's nothing. It's just like, that's just the typical thing, right? Because ES is like trader crack. That's what they called it there. They called it crack. You're trading crack because it moves, and we like to see it move, and you're making money or whatever, and that's what gets you going, right? But the equity index futures had the reputation on those desks as being the most difficult instrument to trade. Like, I think that it was basically a toss-up between equity indexes and foreign exchange as to what was harder to trade. Because with equity indexes, there's just so much going in. Now, at the bank, when you're trading equity index futures, they're not necessarily trying to predict whether it's going to go up or down, right? They're just trying to predict whether their clients are going to need to hedge and things like that. So it's a little bit different of a thing for them to make money. But I tell you, I've said this and I'll say it a billion times. ES is probably the hardest futures instrument to trade. And all of these people that are telling you that all you have to do is just look at a chart and there's these patterns and you're going to make money from that, doesn't know what they're talking about. Basically that just means they're inexperienced enough to realize the flaws in that. That's an interesting answer. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was like, I have to tell you, like that really is my story, right? Because at the time, I had read a lot of technical analysis books. So I really believed in it. I don't think I understood at the time where the stuff that I had learned was actually applicable or not. The stuff that I had learned is good on swing trades and it's not good intraday, right? And when I talked to them, You know, and she's like, what do you like to do? Oh, well, I've been just trading chart patterns, just like on a 1 minute chart. And they were like, oh, you know what? Like, I'll do it on a higher time frame chart, but you think that they work on a 1 minute chart, huh? You know, it was primarily a girl that I was talking to, but it was actually a group of traders. It was like 4 or 5 guys that were trading the Japan futures, actually, the yen futures, but or a currency like that. Maybe it wasn't the yen, but I digress. It didn't come in and say, oh, well, you're wrong, like this is the problem, you know, I should probably be more like them. But I could tell from their reaction that that's not what they did, and that's not what they believed. They were open-minded to it. They were like, well, maybe you actually did find something, right? But they knew really that it didn't work like that, right? So and then I started to see the things that they actually were looking at. What were they actually looking at? They had this huge database and all of this infrastructure to figure out what the impact of their trades were going to be. So when they came in and they had to buy a certain amount of something, how much that was going to move that instrument, so that they knew what to quote to their clients. And then they cared about when was their client going to come and call them. Can they identify the types of situations where those clients are going to come in and want to do something, so that you can kind of start preparing yourself before you make the deal with them, right? And so then I asked them, like, okay, so how did you learn all of this stuff, like impact and that sort of a thing? Well, I learned it at university. That's what she said. That's what she did her master's degree in. Was in market impact. And there was, she helped a PhD do a study on this sort of a thing, and then got hired by the bank to do it at a block trading desk. That's how they learned it. And they gave me a couple of studies that at the time I read and I didn't get them. But that's how I knew. So the reason that I've come down to a different approach to the market than basically everybody else in the retail trading community is because I had this unique position where I was able to see enough about how they were trading at the bank to know where to find the information that they had without it having been explicitly taught to me in a way that I wouldn't be able to talk about it. Because most of them, they can't really, they're in the industry. That's the industry that they're going to be in for the rest of their life. And you're not allowed to talk about it when you're basically not allowed to say anything about the business or the industry when you're working for them, right? So they can't tell you. Because basically what I'm saying is that if you went to JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs and you went to a block trading desk and you talked to them about how they traded, they would basically teach you the same stuff that I tell you about. And that's why I came down on a different, that's how I approach it differently. So that is my story. That's how I trade the futures now. I won't even consider a trade unless I need to hedge my portfolio. Well, for equity indexes, that makes a lot of sense to use equity indexes to hedge, like especially for a big event, right? Like COVID would be a great example. In fact, I think I vaguely remember talking about this when COVID happened. Is like, okay, we're having a full-on pandemic. They're gonna shut things down. We know that this is going to have a massive impact on the market. So we're just going to go short until you start seeing the stimulus come out. And you could have hedged yourself against all the downside, yeah. Because it's probably too difficult and not what you want to just sell all of your individual stocks. You still want to own the stocks, so you just hedge yourself against the downside. It's a great way to do it. I mean, That's why equity indexes exist. Really. Yeah, this is the other thing that I think I think about this probably once a day now. It's become my Roman Empire or whatever the deal is this comment that Jeffrey Epstein made to some other person where he basically and it's an email that's been shared really widely because it's one of the instances where they used the word goyim and all of that. But basically he said, oh, okay, you have a business where you have to ship things and then the cost of shipping goes up and you're screwed. So what do? You sell shipping futures. Or no, you buy shipping futures in that instance, right? But then you're hedged essentially, and the risk is all on the people that are taking the other side of the trade from you. And guess what? And everybody made a big deal like this is a big fine. You know, they know that they're taking advantage of people, and this is a scam and all of this sort of thing. And I'm just sitting here like, do people not know how futures work? Like that's basically what futures are for, is so that you can transfer risk to other people. I don't want the risk of shipping going up or down and that effect on its business, so I transfer it to somebody else that does want that risk. That's the primary use case for futures. I think some people, it's kind of funny to watch the retail traders and the way they talk about these things. They really think that all of these things were created so that they would have the chance to come in here and gamble and possibly get rich. That's their whole approach to it. They never think about, actually, the markets exist because there are businesses that needed them. The stock market exists because there are large businesses that need funding, need access to large amounts of capital, and a stock market is the only way to get access to that. The markets exist for the people with the money and the people with the information to conduct their business, and we're just kind of little fish that are getting in the way. Might catch a small piece every once in a while. That's yeah, man. Yesterday I came across, there's just like completely different thing, but I came across somebody on TikTok that was like, they were talking about liquidity, and I was just like, no, you have this all wrong. And they were saying like, okay, here's a place where price moved really, really quickly, and so that's an area of high liquidity, and not. I was like, no, it's completely backwards. There's not like high resistance liquidity and low resistance liquidity. There's just the amount of liquidity overall there. And the more liquidity there is in an area, the harder it is to move through price. And you can't see that on a chart, because there can be an instance where it moves really, really quickly, but there was still a lot of liquidity there, and it's just the market orders were bigger. Right? Boy, it bothered because the person seemed so genuine, but they really didn't know what they were talking about. Oh yeah, all of that just to say, just because an instrument moves doesn't mean that there was opportunity for you. We know, and this is the biggest. If you want to day trade, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but if you want to day trade, the most important thing that you can learn, the thing that's going to make the biggest difference, is knowing when there's opportunity and when there's not. And you can know beforehand, just based on what kind of economic releases and things are happening in the market. So when we have a day like today, where there's not a whole lot of important information going on, yesterday kind of ended up in a stalemate, and you have a big CPI number tomorrow, they're not going to do very much. And what they do is noise. So there's probably not a lot of trading opportunity for you. It's better to just chat. Better to just chat, and probably we should have spent more of this time programming rather than talking politics, but I think it was important. Because I just don't want Madi to become a woke libtard. So there was another point I wanted to make of this comment from Apol about like that we went wrong. Well, I mean, I don't think that they're saying that climate change isn't a thing, but they are saying that their approach is changing. But I don't know if they're making the change that they need to. Is Bill Gates saying, "Oh, this strategy was wrong and we need to shift to a new strategy"? Or is Bill Gates realizing that he is trying to do something that just shouldn't be done? That when you exert that much influence over what people think, that it's harmful. You know what I mean? It's too late. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing that I think is the most harmful in the politics right now is that the Democrat Party is become so much of a complete joke that they are not really very politically relevant anymore. I mean, the way that the electoral system in the United States is and everything like that, you're going to see the margins in the House and the Senate are going to be really close. And so it's going to seem like that they're still right in it. But the reality is when you really start to go into the polling and everything, you really see that the Democrat Party is really starting to falter. And it's really starting to falter, especially among some of its oldest adherents. That it used to be that Latinos and African, or blacks, is what we call them now, right? Latinos and blacks were like the biggest parts of their coalition. And they have kind of traded it for LGBT and Muslims, which is kind of weird and doesn't work, but whatever. Madi's okay with it, so maybe it'll work. But, and now they're having a hard time keeping the margins that they need amongst blacks and Latinos for their coalition to work. So, like, when you look at, and then the demographics are that left-wing states, people are leaving, and they're moving to right-wing states. Like, if the census was held today, and then we adjusted everything on the census today, I think there was it's something like a swing of like 12 electoral votes. It's huge. There's a real possibility that come 2030, the Democrat Party will not be relevant in national politics anymore. Not without a huge change in their approach, right? And I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good because ultimately it's the diversity of thought. It's you're not smart enough. No human is to figure out all of this stuff on their own. You need a system, and you need a system. Part of the thing that you need in a system like that is diversity of thought. My favorite complexity study that I've heard about is they did one where they simulated an entire economy. And basically they each agent in the system was a household, and that agent would look at what its neighbors were doing to determine whether to save or to spend. And when they did that, then you would get kind of the peak and trough economic cycle that we see. So an empirical behavior that we know about, or a stylized behavior that we know about that's been hard to duplicate in our models. And they make it with that agent-based model, right? So then they said, well, economists say that the optimal amount of saving is this. That's the thing that would be the best for you and for society as a whole for you to save. And if they go in and they tell all of the agents to save this much, the whole system collapses. Everybody doing the same thing causes the system to stop working. Right? There has to be a certain amount of chaos in it for it to work. So when you have a situation like we had, frankly, shortly after 9/11, where like everybody was just all on board with the Republicans and George Bush and being patriotic and everything, and then Republicans shoved through a ton of stuff that they wanted to do, it was bad. It was very bad. You don't want one party to have a stranglehold on the politics. It's a bad thing that the Democrat Party is starting to wane as much as it is. We're going socialist, mom down. I don't think so. I mean, so more broadly, if you look at where the world is headed, like we look at the technology and what are the things that are going to determine whether a country or a city or a state is going to be successful in the near future. When you really start to game it out, I think you'll see that social programs are going to become smaller, basically. And they're going to rely more and more on entrepreneurship. So going socialist, no. New York's going to try it, but I don't think that he's going to actually do anything too terribly socialist. He's just going to talk a big game and never actually do anything. And the few things that he does do, because it doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing, are going to be bad. They're going to have their taste and they're going to move away from it. And then probably in the next decade, you're going to get somebody similar to Rudy Giuliani, except for more on an economic front, that is going to make the New York economy more free so that it's easier to start new businesses and to grow businesses there. China, number one. Yeah, no, and China's going to have problems because there's not enough diversity in their system to compete. So think about this for a second. I gotta go, but this is a really important thing to talk about. AI is infinite knowledge, essentially. So we've had these situations, things in the past, like social media. That's like infinite socialness. But what has that actually resulted in? More loneliness and isolation. So do you really think that now, when we have infinite knowledge at our fingertips, that's going to make everything better? No. Because really, think about it. If everybody can do that now, and everybody has infinite knowledge, really what's going to happen is everybody's going to come down to the same thing. Anybody that wants to do a thing, they're going to consult with the AI about it, and the AI is going to tell them the same thing that it told the other thousands of people that asked that sort of a thing. And so you're going to see convergence on the same set of ideas. Who has the advantage in that situation? The people that have diversity of thought. The people that are willing to think on their own and do something different. The ones that are able to see what the correct answer is, what everybody else is doing, and see another way that takes advantage of that. Syndrome. If everyone is super, nobody is. Yeah. It is kind of like that, right? But it's the same thought, right? You need that diversity. I don't want a bunch of traders that all trade the same way as me. I want them to understand empirical data. I don't want them to be trading based off of nonsense. But I want them to have their own ideas and their own ways of doing things that they can teach. That's how we get better. If we were all the same, if you were all just a clone of me, then we would probably be terrible traders. Right? But because we're all different and we're all sharing stuff, we've all become better. Yeah? What was the bold ass claim? Oh, what? That there's a real possibility that come 2030, that Democrat Party won't be relevant in electoral politics anymore. I actually don't think it's that bold of a claim. The population change has been so extreme that the Democrat Party just won't really be very competitive there. Now, that doesn't mean that like Democrats won't ever win another election. It's just that their party is going to have to shift to stay relevant. Basically, they're going to have to shift enough that they can actually get votes in the big cities in some of these conservative states. Right. Which would probably mean dropping some of the woke stuff and going back more to the kind of party they had when it was Bill Clinton. Anyways, I should get going. Well, you know, it's interesting enough. We did end up having a little bit of a trend up in the treasury. But where are we at in yield? 4.15. Okay. I would really like to see yields back below 4%, but I don't know if that's going to happen this year. Okay. Well, I will have to do, maybe I can do some of this programming over the weekend because there's still a lot of things I want to change about the daily volatility levels indicator. Yep, good game. Thank you guys for joining. It was a fun day today. I will see you tomorrow for that CPI. Maybe we will do so. I don't know. I tend not to have very good luck on Fridays, but if that CPI is bad, then that could be a huge opportunity for us, right? So until then, stay excellent.